On this episode of the Cinema Minute,
The mutants are back, and this time they're in the 1980s, taking on an Egyptian god in Bryan Singer's X-Men Apocalypse.
Star Wars on the small screen as James Earl Jones returns as Darth Vader with the rebels in his sights for the upcoming Season 2 finale.
And it's time to dust off the whips and fedoras as Indiana Jones is on his way back to the cinemas for the 5th installment of the franchise.
Hi, welcome back to the Cinema Minute. I'm Chris Allan.
I'm Grant Robson.
Thanks for all the great support on our first New Look episode last week. It's really appreciated. I'm glad you all enjoyed our Star Wars ramblings, talking a lot about Spider-Man's costume. There was definitely a lot of that last week, but it's been really appreciated, and I hope you continue to enjoy the New Look series.
And thanks for all the likes on social media, on Twitter and Facebook especially. We've seen a lot of positive feedback from there as well, so thank you for watching.
Yeah, thank you.
So let's get down to business. What have you been watching this week, Chris?
I think like everyone with any sort of slight geek credentials has been watching Daredevil.
That's the big news. Season 2.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Brutal. My God.
We're not going to spoil it because I know it is obviously just very fresh, and I've only seen 6 out of, is it 10?
30.
Oh, okay. Well, even less than. So I've only seen 6 out of 30, and you've finished it.
I've watched it.
Yeah. So Grant's already wanted to spoil it for me.
I'm so close as well. There's so many min bits.
Like literally before we filmed it, I was like, no, I don't want to know. Like,
Don't say a word.
Again, like from half a series in, like. Obviously, Netflix and Marvel have had such a good success rate with the first series of Daredevil, with the first series of Jessica Jones, and so like expectations were like through the roof for like Daredevil series 2.
Definitely.
So much like hype for Punisher, so much hype for Elektra coming into the series as well. And again, even from where I'm at, even from the first episode, it's
they blew it out the
kind
water.
of
It's amazing. It's really good.
One of the highlights of the first series that everyone talked about was the hallway fight in series 3.
It's been all over the social media. I guarantee anybody watching this has seen some of the stills or some of the takes from the new scene in Daredevil.
Yeah, I mean, when you see, just even seeing them in a hallway again in the end of episode 3, you're like, oh god, here it goes. But I can't wait to finish it. Did it live up to your expectations?
Yeah, I think as much as I was expecting the violence and as much as I was expecting a lot of the brutal realities they bring to the show, the courtroom drama side of things was amazing as well. Really, really interesting. A lot of on-edge stuff there as well. So I was really looking forward to the fight scenes and things like that. But I was really blown away about how invested I got in the actual the courtroom drama of Frank Castle, which anybody will know is a staple in the comic books as well. So it's fantastic. It's great.
When I've actually finished it, we'll talk more.
Sorry.
To be fair, I want to stop. I want to go and watch it now. I might walk away. I might walk away in a few minutes, and if I do, it's for a good reason.
But you love me.
First up, we've got the 8th installment of the X-Men universe, which introduces us to the first and most powerful mutant of them all, Apocalypse. Here we see the disillusioned Titan, along with his 4 horsemen, burst off the comic book page and onto the silver screen to take on Charles Xavier's young team, with the aim of cleansing Homo sapiens from the Earth.
Okay, yes, so the 8th installment in the X-Men universe, Apocalypse, what can we say about it? It looks exciting.
I mean, it looks very, obviously, I suppose, story-wise, this is following on from X-Men sort of First Class.
Yeah.
X-Men Days of Future Past. But I suppose the thing to remember is we've already had, one massive X-Men success film, filming the X-Men sort of universe this year already, the sort of unexpected hit, I suppose, of Deadpool, and this is very much, I suppose with that being the X-Men film we didn't expect, this very much looks like the X-Men films.
We are expecting.
Yeah, I suppose 7 out, this looks like 6 out of the 7 X-Men films as opposed to sort of to Deadpool, which I guess was
which you can't really class as it. They use the characters and things, but it's definitely in the same universe. So it'll be exciting to see when they do catch up to present day again.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I can only imagine Fox at the minute wish Deadpool was in this film, so they could
plug him in. They
could push this film based on the character that we've already had a massive success with this year already.
Well.
And such an unexpected success from their point of view, I think.
I mean, what was the budget was $58 million, which is nothing compared to most superhero films. So, and going from that to a box office taking like 700 million nearly, it's incredible. Absolutely.
I get that looks like something that wish I could replicate with this film.
Definitely.
I mean, because this is much more traditional, I suppose, in its like size and scope.
Well, I think they're trying to harken back to those original films because they're using Bryan Singer again as director. He did Days of Future Past, but I think what Bryan Singer has done there is absolutely incredible in terms of the plot and the themes and the storyline he's done. He's merged two franchises together to create a new one, and he can just keep going again. He's just basically restarted the continuity once again. But in a way we haven't seen before in a lot of films. It hasn't just stopped and said that they don't exist anymore. They're not part of the mythos. He's actually merged two franchises into one, which is really interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I remember at the time when Days of Future Past, the last sort of canonical episode of the X-Men franchise came out, Simon Kinberg, one of the writers and producers, talked about the idea of canon and sort of, how this universe fits together. And basically came out and said that before Days of Future Past, they acknowledged that it didn't. Yeah, obviously, Bryan Singer, directed those first two films, and then left the project
which were a massive hit, though. I mean, he was one of the key players in starting this whole.
I mean, we wouldn't have the sort of superhero explosion that we have now, and have had now if those original. Those original films didn't hit, and X-Men was sort of the big hitter from that set.
I mean, was the first one 2000?
Yes, I guess so this series has been going on for some time now, and I guess with Days of Future Past it did kind of do that semi reboot.
Yeah.
After the sort of actual kind of semi reboot of First Class.
Yeah.
Again we guess kind of set a new two sort of lines of continuity were set.
Yeah.
To sort of appease fans, and I guess we're in that sort of younger one now because obviously when we left these characters in Days of Future Past it was sort of the mid-70s. Now by this trailer I guess we're looking at the sort of early mid-80s. I'm not sure if we've got an official date, but again really interesting in sort of being a new period film, stylistically, especially in the bits of sort of Quicksilver. It fits really well. I mean the 80s were a kind of golden era for the X-Men, and
definitely,
that's kind of represented here, even down to Storm's mohawk, and
it's quite good. Like the first appearance of Apocalypse was in 1986 in a run called X-Factor, and he wasn't actually supposed to be the lead villain. So I think the time frame in the film that's about to come out and the time frame of Apocalypse actually came out was actually pretty much spot on, which is really clever again. I think
there's a few things about this film where it looks like it's really going into that sort of history of the comic books and pulling a lot more out than a lot of the X-Men films have before, but a lot of comic book films since have. So again, we talk about even, as recently as Deadpool, something that's really tied into its comic book roots, making a lot of references to that. But, again, back, going 15 years ago or so, to that original X-Men film, they literally make a joke where how it's not like the comics. Wolverine says, what do you expect us to wear, yellow spandex and stuff like that. This film proves that people want that yellow. People are ready for that yellow spandex now. You know what I mean? It's not the sort of.
They don't want a new take. They want the origin stories. They want them the markers that make them superheroes in the comics.
Yeah, the stories that they love. And I think Psylocke is one of the real standouts of this trailer. For really 100% nailing the comic book look.
For the look, the suit and everything is literally just straight out of the comic books. And from the little we've seen of her in the trailer, I'm really excited to see what happens in the film with her as well.
Yeah, such a fascinating, an interesting character. And
I think a lot of the problems. I mean, it's already had a few criticisms already. I mean, Bryan Singer tends to have this idea that he can just change things willy-nilly, so to speak, and a lot of the criticisms are around the way Apocalypse looks. I did have a few apprehensions about that, but as long as he's got the same abilities, I think that'd be really exciting.
I mean, this is something, where the initial reaction to sort of the first images released from the film, it looks like they've kind of made an effort, and from what we've heard, they've made an effort to go in and digitally make Apocalypse more like the sort of purpley blue appearance of the comics. But I mean, from this trailer, we see he kind of has some of those abilities, especially being the sort of change in his size, which something again in maybe those earlier films would have been totally discounted as being too comic booky, for lack of a better term. But now they're kind of embracing that, and that's really good to see.
Exciting, really excited for it. I'm so excited.
They kind of are establishing this new team, and you've got to remember it's the third time especially McAvoy as Professor X,
Yeah,
Fassbender as Magneto, and Jennifer Lawrence as Mystique. You know, they've done 3 films now, and since when they started in First Class, they became 3 massive actors. Especially Jennifer Lawrence, and you know,
got a lot to live up to as well from the original cast of the X-Men films. I mean, you had Patrick Stewart, you had
I mean, they started.
Who played Mystique?
So again, it was Rebecca Romaine Samaras, I think.
Yes,
you know, so again, like
right,
you know, people iconic roles, and you know,
and
these 3 actors have lived up to them, and sort of, you know,
definitely
acted opposite them, I suppose, in the last film, Days of Future Past. But now, you know, the fact they've gone, especially you know Jennifer Lawrence,
essentially,
you know, is this the last time we'll be seeing Jennifer Lawrence as Mystique? Is this the last time we'll be seeing
She's not technically Mystique at the moment. She's Raven still. She's still kind of dealing with is she good or is she bad?
I mean, you know, I think what we can see, especially, you know, we saw in Days of Future Past, since the first film, you know, as she got more and more famous, her in the Mystique blue makeup a lot less and less. You know, I suppose if you've got one of the most recognised actresses of the sort of the time, you know, you maybe don't put her in blue
all the time. She's trying to be recognised.
But you know, does that mean, you know, as this new set of characters, you know, we're introducing people who, you know, who are considered the main X-Men, Cyclops, Jean Grey. The fact we're getting new young versions of those mean maybe
there's going to be new films.
Maybe you know, the new films spin off from them, and less with Mystique.
And will that mean a new Wolverine? Ooh.
Yeah, something that's been rumoured for a while, and something, you know, Hugh Jackman has been talking about.
It's his last film. He doesn't want to do any more.
Yeah, after Old Man Logan, which I guess we're getting pretty soon, which is, you know, really exciting concept. You know, this idea of it being the maybe last Wolverine on the film on the horizon too. I suppose, you know, and the success of Deadpool, the X universe could start looking quite different from these next couple of films. So it'll be interesting to see.
Okay, so next up, Star Wars Rebels is recently awarded Season 2 finale, and StarWars.com has dropped a new set of trailers leading up to the event, which finally reunites Darth Vader with his former apprentice, Ahsoka Tano.
So the whole world, as we were talking about last week, is still very much Star Wars crazy. But you know, a lot of that is going into still talking about The Force Awakens, you know, and sort of looking forward to, I suppose, Episode 8. As well as, you know, the Han Solo spin-off and Rogue One later this year. But I think the thing that a lot of people are forgetting is we're basically getting like a Star Wars film on a sort of weekly basis at the minute. And if you're not watching Star Wars Rebels, you're really missing out.
Should be, I mean,
series,
so many elements they're bringing into it from the Star Wars mythology that are just making this program a must-watch for any Star Wars fan. You get so much backstory, you find out so many ideas, and then they're also on StarWars.com. They do like a little mini documentary after each episode, and it explains to you where all of this comes from the original writers, original creators. It's a really in-depth field.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a program much like Star Wars: The Clone Wars that preceded it, where a lot of people could write it off as sort of being, oh, it's a cartoon. Like it was one of those like 80s sort of droids that you watch sort of cartoons, you know, sort of like a bit camp sort of crap sort of thing, but you know, like. And you know, when you've got maybe these massive films coming out, it would be kind of maybe easy to write these ones off. But you would really, you know, if you really are a Star Wars fan, this is something that you definitely have to, you know, appreciate and take advantage of.
Rebels, it's set between Episode 3 and Episode 4. So all the little things that led up to A New Hope are all kind of getting thought out and played out in front of our eyes. It's great.
I mean, it's really connecting the prequel universe, which, you know, has got its... you know, has got people who kind of aren't, you know, aren't that keen on it, and sort of, you know, and the original trilogy. And, you know, there's that, you know, 18-year gap or so, and this program really ties together those two time periods. The stuff we're getting, especially in the latest few episodes, you know, especially the Ahsoka episode recently, there's some really deep stuff there, and again, especially with Frank Oz returning as Yoda, is
that kind of made it for me. That's when I realised how excellent this series was, when I heard Yoda's voice for the first time again after all them years, and I just thought, like, that is amazing. They've used the real actors. James Earl Jones as well, when you just hear the breath go in and then he comes out of the ship, and it's really exciting.
That's the thing. I mean, you know, having these two huge characters recurring just for the last couple of episodes, you know,
in a kids program no less as well.
Yeah, but I mean, I think what elevates it from just being a cartoon or a kids program or whatever to being something which is essential Star Wars, you know, as much as the Force, like, you know, the fact you are getting literally, we've got 3 episodes of Series 2 left. And, you know, we are getting that final duel between Darth Vader and Ahsoka Tano.
So for those of you who don't know, before Anakin became Darth Vader, he had an apprentice, much like he was Obi-Wan's apprentice, which is called Ahsoka Tano. She plays a massive role in Clone Wars. She's really integral to the storyline. But after that, nobody knew what happened to her. There was no kind of story about her. Even in the comic book run that's classed as canon now, there's nothing about her at all.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those characters where, you know, when she was introduced, when the Clone Wars movie came out, you know, people were very hesitant about. You know, this is a character who, at the time, didn't seem to fit into what we understood about Star Wars. You know, the Clone Wars movie set between episodes 2 and 3. Ahsoka Tano isn't in episode 3. So, you know, the original thought was, who's this sort of girl character being introduced who's obviously going to die off before the next film and kind of have no impact on the series. But, you know, as the Clone Wars went on for several years, there's not one person who came out of that series with Ahsoka not being one of their favourite characters. And, you know, I was one of that.
You kind of see how Anakin is starting to change into Vader. His opinions and his views of the Jedi Council are all changing. But Ahsoka plays such an integral role because she's seeing this happen alongside him. And she has a completely different outlook on the Jedi Order.
And one of these new trailers really shows that. Again, this confrontation, you know, Ahsoka survives the Clone War, but she's kind of exiled from the Jedi community. But she's returned at the end of Series 1 of Rebels as sort of, you know, someone to help them out. Someone, you know, who can give them that guidance and wisdom. But that also means she's going to come in contact with her old master. But if you haven't been checking out Star Wars Rebels, really try to get caught up before this series finale, because it looks like it's going to be a big one and an absolute must for any Star Wars fans. And finally, proving it's not the years, but it's the mileage, Disney and Lucasfilm have just announced that Harrison Ford and Steven Spielberg will be reuniting to bring everyone's favourite archaeologist back to the screen for a 5th time in 2019.
Yes, Indiana Jones is back. Can't wait.
It seems like it's been too long. It's been 8 years since the last instalment of the Indiana Jones,
which was heavily criticised.
Which, I mean,
I for one loved it. I really did love it.
This might get people to switch off, but I really enjoyed the 4th Indiana Jones too. Me and I've, you know, talked at length to people about how I like Indiana Jones 4 and kind of will defend it. But it doesn't necessarily mean I think it's perfect.
It's not flawless by any means. But it is, it's great.
But you know,
I mean, he's conquered every religion, so why not aliens?
Yeah, I mean,
discover the mysteries of the universe. Why not? Dinosaurs next. I'd watch that.
money. Oh yeah, like take all my money. Like, but it's such an exciting prospect. You know, this press release came out as we were posting the last episode last week, actually. You know, from Disney and from Lucasfilm, finally reuniting Harrison Ford and Steven Spielberg for the 5th time in this franchise. You know, especially with Kathleen Kennedy, who is now, of course, head of Lucasfilm. You know, this is something that's been sort of talked about since Disney bought the company a few years back now. And after the success they've obviously had with The Force Awakens at the end of last year, with Harrison Ford as the lead character, you know, this was kind of inevitable.
But I think we should point out that Harrison Ford's going to be close to 80 when he shoots this film. He's going to be about 76-year-old. He's 74 this year. It's going to be difficult, and I think if they do use Shia LaBeouf again, it's going to throw up a lot of issues in production. Especially.
I mean, it's I mean, we'll get to that one. But I suppose talking about Harrison Ford first. You know, this criticism was thrown around. You know, again, 8 years ago when the 4th installment was coming out, you know, like Indiana, you know, you heard kind of every, you know, variation of the joke, like Indiana Jones and the, you know, retirement home of doom and stuff like, you know, you heard every kind of one of those jokes 8 years ago, and 8 years ago, he really did, like, you know, whatever criticisms you might have of that 4th film, Harrison Ford, you know, isn't one of them. And you know, we heard
you were a teacher.
Part-time. Or is it actually is in the film part-time? Like, but you know, this is again something, you know, that was joked about last year when Star Wars 7 was coming out. You know, it's going to be, you know,
came up a lot.
It's going to be geriatric Han Solo. And you know, again, literally 3 months ago, it was proved that that wasn't the case.
Definitely.
And the fact that, you know, people are saying is it going to be the case this time? Well, he's kind of proven time and time again, but it isn't. But he's still really got what it takes.
Where could they take it? Where would you think they could take this storyline? Because we've had the Holy Grail, we've had like the epitome of Christianity, we've had the Shankara stones, which is a big Hindu part. What was the first one? The Ark of the Covenant, absolutely. So that's big in Jewish mythology. But then they went the other way. They went like Aztecs and aliens.
Yeah, I mean, it's Aztecs and Aliens would be such a good title for the film as well. They really missed a trick with that.
We were actually talking about the Fate of Atlantis. It was a game in the 90s.
Yeah, so some video game fans might remember this one again. LucasArts point and click adventure from the mid 90s, which was a personal favourite of mine when I was a kid.
Yeah, absolutely.
But a great story too. It would have,
storyline.
If the series had continued into the 90s, it totally would have made sense for this where it would go.
Yeah.
Indiana Jones back fighting the Nazis in World War II, but kind of dealing with another big sort of super natural, mythological sort of thing with Atlantis.
Definitely.
But I guess the series and with the age of the actors, Indiana Jones 4, the time moves with the characters. That's set in sort of 50s, sort of Cold War era.
Yeah.
And that has kind of quite a big effect on the story itself. Again, it moves it away from being that Nazi sort of base enemies to something a bit more
Soviet.
Yeah, but something which is a bit, I suppose, with the Cold War, not as clear cut and not as sort of direct in many ways.
I think it's a good thing to point out as well that in Indiana Jones 4, everybody seemed to notice that he wasn't on the side of the government this time. The government in the last 3 films, the government went to him for help, or he's had to help somebody. In this one, he was kind of very reluctant to help. He was kind of basically taken in the night by the FBI, dragged somewhere and told to help, and then he gets kidnapped as well, obviously. Very reluctant to help as opposed to...
Yeah, it'd be, him, how he's changed as a character, because, how the war affected him, and how now the Cold War's affecting him too. I guess, if we logically think about it, if that last film was sort of mid-50s, that would kind of take us to maybe early 60s. In this one, which is a very different visually time period from both those original 3 films, but also this 4th one as well. What we know about the 60s. Do they go Beatlemania, or do they go
oh, that would be excellent.
or do they go do they go full hippie Indiana Jones? Like that could be a real contrast of
You've also got the space race in America in '63.
You've
got the Vietnam War.
Although I think
a lot of elements
after Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, space race might anything that's kind of out of this world might be totally off the table. Now the thing that is missing from that press release is the mention of co-creator of Indiana Jones, and that's George Lucas.
George Lucas, yes, the Star Wars man himself.
Him not being mentioned at all in something that he was the co-creator on is it's a bit like, I mean, as someone who is a George Lucas fan, it's something that's a bit off-putting, especially since how Episode 7 kind of distanced itself from him in some ways as well.
Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, obviously he did sell his company to he gave Kathleen Kennedy the keys to the car, I suppose, and sold the company as a whole to Disney. So, I guess he, and moved on to sort of his semi-retirement again. Loads of pictures of him going around last week eating noodles in a food court, and he's got his, he's working on, opening his museum in Chicago as well. So, I guess he's a busy man to maybe come up with the idea of a new Indiana Jones film. And again, it looks like, to maybe keep fans happy and maybe, not engage with that internet rage. That kind of, have moved away from him. But not mentioning him at all, I don't know, to me seems like, you don't want to lose that magic. Because, I guess as much as there's been recent criticism of George Lucas, and if you agree with that or not, you kind of can't doubt his legacy of, creating Indiana Jones and creating the original Star Wars. But again, what else do you hope for? Do you hope for any other returning characters? I guess, we've talked about we're probably not getting we're not getting Mutt Williams in this one, but who would might be?
I don't think they'll use the whole family dynamic again. I think a lot of that is kind of what killed the story in Indiana Jones 4. I'm hoping for a new archaeologist, to be honest with you, somebody that can do the action for him, but still keep the legacy of Indy alive. There's a lot of potential people as well. Like you've said Chris Pratt already. I can't really think of any of us off the top of my head that would be really good for the role. But
it's interesting, but I suppose, you know...
The thing with Indiana Jones is, though, there's that much action that is, I don't think you could do it anymore from that scale of what it has been.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. You know, does it take more of a... and again, something that David Cope has written, you know, the sort of Da Vinci Code movies as well, you know, sort of more of a mystery, more of a thriller for, you know, a slightly older actor in Tom Hanks, I suppose, you know, older than our traditional sort of action stars. You know, does it take that approach as, you know, being more of a conventional action film? Absolutely, or do they boost up, you know, keeping what Harrison Ford can do, but also, you know, having that sort of
an extra layer to it, yeah.
I mean, I guess what I would, you know, would a female one be the way to go? Ooh, you know, I mean, there's been there's current talk of, you know, a Lara Croft film as well, but you know, Indiana Jones, I guess, was their first in a lot of ways.
Absolutely.
And you know, it would be interesting to see.
I mean, if from our age group, you would have grown up with like the likes of Indiana Jones, like every weekend on TV. It's an absolutely amazing trilogy, the original three, and I love the fourth one, but they're the kind of films you can watch over and over again, and I think that is because, exactly like you say, of the core group of people that created it itself. I'm really happy to see Spielberg in the director's chair again, though. I think that he's, over the last few years, he's done a lot of dramas, a lot of character-driven films. But just to be back having fun on a family adventure. I mean, we've got Ready Player One coming out next year.
Yeah, well, we've actually got BFG coming this summer from
as well,
Steven Spielberg, and Ready Player One based on.
It's based on a book.
Based on sort of an amazing book, if you haven't checked it out, by Ernest Cline. You know, a real sci-fi, a real sort of geek treat in a lot of ways. You know, something that makes reference to all those films, you know, from our childhood, from the 70s, 80s, 90s. Absolutely. You know, all those action and adventure titles. You know, the fact that Steven Spielberg's doing that's great. But again,
who made a lot of these?
Yeah, you know, there's so many, you know, references are there to, you know, E.T., to the rest, but to Back to the Future, you know, things he's been involved with. So it's great that Steven Spielberg's doing that. But, you know, again, that's pushing this film further and further back. You know, when there's issues like you kind of mentioned about Harrison Ford, is that something for concern? But like, you know, as you've also mentioned, I guess Steven Spielberg's so prolific. You know, even for a director who's kind of is, you know, getting older, it's definitely not slowing him down.
No,
you know, we've just had Bridge of Spies. We're getting BFG. You know, Ready Player One's kind of imminently about to start with casting kind of rumours and news kind of coming out more and more.
More on that next week.
And yeah, you know, that's something really to look forward to, something we'll definitely be covering.
Absolutely.
I hope, you know, like, it's exciting we're going to get this. You know, Rubber Apocalypse being the other one, which, you know, it's interesting how this will affect that film, something that's been long talked about. And now, you know, the writer from Martian being involved with it, you would think that would be something that was being pushed forward. But nothing's as big as Indy, I guess.
That's it. I think with all the hype around Star Wars, the Indiana Jones announcement, and so many Marvel and DC films coming out over the next few years, it's kind of getting overshadowed by a lot of these things. So I think there'll be really good surprises at the cinema when these films are released, and they're amazing. They're from Spielberg, so
I mean, that's the thing. Again, you know, even some criticism of some recent Spielberg films, you know, not being everyone's cup of tea, especially things where it's more drama based, perhaps in some instances. You know, I would still take any Steven Spielberg film over a lot of people any day. So this is something we're definitely excited about, and definitely will probably talk about anything anytime there's any slight
news. We'll get on that. We'll bring it to you straight away.
Yeah, look forward to that.
Yeah, but that's us all done.
Yeah, that's been another episode of the Cinema Minute since our revival, since our new look, and I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I have. You know, we're really enjoying bringing this show to you again. And again, all that positive feedback is really appreciated. So I would love it if you could get in touch, let us know what you think, and again, a few of you have already. And, you know, we really like hearing it, and we're going to keep doing it anyway. You know, we're interested in this stuff, and even if it's just us watching. But I know,
we know it's not.
No, it's not, and we really appreciate it.
Now, make sure you check us out on Facebook and Twitter as well, at the Cinema Minute.
Yeah, and like us and subscribe on YouTube. Again, get in touch, leave us those comments, and we'll be back real soon.
Thanks.
Thanks for watching. Bye.
Bye.